Well, good morning, everyone. We're here at Cellbridge, and this is just to provide a further explanation about our operation to support COVID-19 and how we as a society combat the spread of COVID-19. We are conducting over the weekend a number of fixed checkpoints, and that's to regulate the movement of traffic. People only should be moving if they have an essential reason to move throughout the country. What we'll be doing is making sure that movement is essential and as described within the regulations. If your movement is not essential, you'll be asked to return to your place of residence. But furthermore, this is also a road safety initiative, but it's all set against the context of the health of the nation, all of us playing our part, all of us acting together to defeat COVID-19. Also then today, we've received the regulations. They've been signed by the Minister. But again, our approach is not changing. We are a community-based policing service. We're applying the same tact as we have all week. It'll be one of informing people, engaging with them, persuading them to comply with the regulations, and enforcement is only at the very end of non-compliance by an individual. I think we hope to see, and we think we will see, very few requirements to actually use the regulations in a purely enforcement sense, and we still will depend upon the vast majority of society acting in compliance with the health advice, and these regulations are there to back that up. Thank you. Well, the regulations now are in effect, and they last until, at the moment, until Sunday evening, 12 midnight. We have finalised our policy for the organisation, and that will be distributed today, in fact very shortly. And so all the members from Garda Síochána will be given guidance as to how they should act at the various checkpoints and also in respect of enforcement. But enforcement is at the very far end of engagement with people, asking for their cooperation, and really us pursuing the policy that we've applied so far.
You said that mostly there has been good cooperation with these principles, but some officers around the country have said that people have been flouting them. They've received some antagonism on the front lines for trying to enforce these. Is that something you're aware of?
Well, yes, indeed. Well, what we're seeing is that the discipline required to live by this medical advice is starting to slip a little. We're seeing things like people exercising more than 2 kilometres from their home. We're seeing people moving for non-essential reasons, and we're also seeing house parties. So these are areas where we feel we may need the regulations in terms of enforcing the restrictions that are in place at the moment. Well, sorry, Paul, I missed this. Well, I don't expect conflict, no, because the vast majority have been in compliance with this, and in fact actually there's a degree of societal pressure about being in compliance as well. But regrettably there's a small minority, and perhaps that's an increasing number, who are starting in effect to breach the advice, and that then brings them in conflict ultimately then with the regulations which are now enforced. But it's our position as a community police service to continue on engaging with people and encourage them then to live within the restrictions and the advice that are in place at the moment. So we don't see this as a situation of conflict. This is a situation of us all working together and acting together to minimise the spread of COVID-19. Well, regrettably not. The regulations would not include that as an essential journey. An essential journey may be going to visit a family member where there's a critical need, but regrettably delivering Easter eggs is not a critical need, and people should realise that is not an essential journey. And if you're stopped, you will be turned back and asked to return to your place of residence. Well, and we are seeing some element of cyclists travelling further than 2 kilometres from their place of residence. And again, we say that's to stop. You exercise within 2 kilometres of your home only. Well, the regulations make it clear that your home is a place of residence, but if you have temporary residence somewhere else, that also is a place of residence. So if you're at your holiday home now, you need to stay there. That is now your place of residence. If you're thinking of travelling there, don't. That is not an essential journey. So if you have travelled for your holiday home now, that's where you are. That's your place of residence, and that'll be regarded as where you should be. But I can reiterate, a journey to a holiday home is not an essential journey. We will be able to turn you back. Well, we will provide an instruction, but you have to look at the manner in which we've conducted the operation now over the last 2 weeks. It has been an operation which has been run with good sense of tact and diplomacy and common sense. That doesn't change this morning because we have the regulations in place. We'll provide further guidance, but it is based upon the principles of engaging people in the first place before we go anywhere near enforcement. But as always, we'll be very careful, make sure that we're proportionate and apply the law in a proportionate and necessary sense, particularly in the respect of these powers, because these powers are powers which are extraordinary in these extraordinary circumstances that we find ourselves in. Well, we want to entirely avoid any scenario of overreach. We want to be proportionate in what we do. This is a graduated response. Everyone will be given the opportunity to comply. If they're outside the regulations, they'll be given the opportunity to comply and go on their day's business. They may be asked to return home, they may be asked to change their behaviour, whatever that is, but people will be given the opportunity to comply before we go anywhere near enforcement powers. There will be checkpoints throughout the country, over 50 checkpoints throughout the country. There won't be many on the motorways, but the motorways are obviously part of arterial routes and an area that we will have to keep observation on and a check on. But this is a big operation which spreads right across the country, and it's in place to deter travel which is not essential.
How exactly do you arrest people and detain them in time when we're meant to be social distancing, just to ensure the safety of your officers and the people that they're engaging with regards to compliance?
Well, arrest is an essential part of our work. It has to carry on. You're obviously then very obviously within the 2 metre zone when you're dealing with an individual, but it's dealt with quickly. We make sure then that our vehicles are kept clean, that our personnel and indeed those that we've access to have access to hand cleaning gel. But we've also then introduced today then these spit guards in case individuals, as has happened regrettably over the last 2 weeks, individuals spit at members of Garda Síochána or indeed at the public.
That's something you're particularly concerned with. We have had multiple reports of people doing that in the last while. Is that something that's, how will these be rolled out to people? Is that could be handled really once you're arrested for
No.
these or just in specific?
Well, it's just in the specific circumstances where somebody's creating a credible threat from spitting either at members of the public or members of Garda Síochána that they would be used. Again, all of this has been done in terms of being proportionality and the proportionality of our response. We've introduced, in effect, these spit guards for the duration of this crisis, and they will be used very sparingly. We don't envisage many situations where they're needed, but they are a further option in terms of personal protective equipment. Well, I think if somebody sees something which is very blatant, then they should let us know, and so we can respond to it, check it out, and deal with the situation and move it on. Really, the regulations are backing up all the advice and restrictions that have been, or the advice that's been provided by the CMO, and we run at act with the rest of society in making sure that advice is followed through on. So if people see something which is of concern to them, which they think is something where obviously there's a risk of the illness being spread on, a further vector for the illness, then they should let us know so that we can act, arrive there, deal with the situation and hopefully then resolve it. Well, the regulations really only talk about you being within your household. The regulations are designed that your contact, unless you're involved in some form of essential service, is your household. And so when you're exercising, you can only exercise with people from your household, for example.
So you can't sit in the park for an hour or two and just watch the boys?
Well, we have seen that, and I think the concern that we have is where people start to mass together. If somebody's sitting individually and they're away from everyone else, yes, watch the birds and all of that there if you want. But the whole thing is you shouldn't be congregating in bigger groups. You shouldn't be congregating with people outside your household.
Is there a point of clarity just on in terms of issuing fines? Are people going to be arrested or on-spot fines? That's the first point of call.
Well, there's no on-the-spot fines, and in fact, the first port of call wouldn't be arrest. The first port of call would be taken on individuals' name and address.